What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's a good day. Let me tell you why. After doing some wheeling and dealing with a friend of mine, I am finally going to be getting my hands on something I've wanted for a very long time. Now, I'm not going to ruin the surprise just yet, but I will give you guys a hint. It's red and it requires a trailer. Come on. All right, guys. Finally got this thing back home, put in the garage, off the trailer. As you can tell, it's not running quite right, but that's okay because I am extremely excited to finally own one of these things. Now, for those who know wheel horses, you might as well just skip the next couple minutes. For those who don't, I'll just explain to you what this thing is. So you guys are looking at a 1975 wheel horse D180. Now, obviously the D standing for D series. The 1.8 out of the 180 is the horsepower. It is an 18 horsepower Kohler K482 engine, twin cylinder. So sometime in the early 70s, the sales department at Wheel Horse reached out to research and development and said, listen, make us a new tractor, but we want three things. We want it to be a full-size garden tractor. We want it to have plenty of horsepower, and we want it to have a category 0 3-point hitch on the back. Now, in about 2 or 3 short years, research and development worked their magic, and this is what they came up with. I don't think the scale of this thing is really going to be appreciated on video. I'm going to have to get another one of my tractors in here to put next to it so you can just truly appreciate the size and the girth of this tractor. This thing weighs in right around 900 pounds, and boy, I could tell on that little trailer of mine. Now, besides the fact this thing's almost 50 years old at this point, which is cool enough in my opinion, let's just kind of go over a couple features that they offered on this. So not only does it have the 3-point hitch on the back, this is a hydrostatic transmission, so the 3 points hydraulic, but it still retains the hydraulic mid-mount attachment lift, whether you had a mower deck, a snow blade, a grader blade. Well, when they built this one, they actually installed 2 separate spool valves, so you have got a lever for each attachment lift. Now, not only could you just get your normal garden tractor attachments, you could fully deck one of these things out. So as well as making the D180, which is what we're looking at here, they also offered a D160, which had a smaller engine, but they also offered a D200. And even some models in the D200 you could get with steering brakes on the back. You can get front end loaders, you can get backhoe attachments, and actually a good friend of mine that doesn't live too far from me, he's got a few of these that's fully decked out with the backhoe and the front loader. Well, enough of the history lesson. As you heard in that first video, it's not exactly running right. I don't know if it's a carburetor issue, so we're going to have to dig into that, see what's going on with it. As well as getting it running right, I do want to go through and do a full service on it. The way it sounds, the family that had this, it sat more than it was used. And so we definitely want to go through, get the oil changed, change the rear end fluid, grease everything, and hopefully we can get this thing running pretty good. So, well, before we get too carried away with throwing parts at this thing and changing fluids, I just want to give it a overall bill of health. I did go through and spray some WD-40 on some parts we might have to touch. That's what the wet spots are, but We'll check out this air filter. Typically that's a good sign of how this machine was serviced over the course of its life. And we're not off to too good of a start there. Filter's all smashed in, filthy. I think I've actually got a new one of these on the shelf. I'll have to check and see. No mouse house, so that's good. Pull the dipstick here and see what the oil looks like. Oh wow, that was way over full. That has a pretty strong whiff of gas, and it seems very thin. I wonder if we've got a stuck needle and seat, guys. That would explain the hard starts, it trying to foul out, smelling real rich, and that would also explain why it's over full on oil. So those who don't know, if that needle and seat sticks, it just constantly allows it to push fuel, even though it's not requiring it. If the bowl's already full, it'll just keep pushing it. It'll go to the easiest place. It either goes up through the carb hat, or it's going to hit the intake first and start dropping into the cylinders. Typically, it'll work its way past the piston rings and end up in the crankcase. Also, just want to apologize if you guys can hear it. My furnace just kicked on. I am running the heat because it's pretty chilly here in Indiana. But I think we're going to go ahead and pull the spark plugs. We'll do a quick compression test. And before I do anything else, I'm going to drain that oil out because that's just not good. Washing the cylinders down with gas is never a good thing. So not too carboned up. It's definitely burning fuel more than it should. Number 2 looks pretty much the same. A little wet, carboned up. Alright, I got the gauge set up. Hopefully you guys will be able to read that. According to the manual, you want at least 90 psi per cylinder, and you cannot have anything greater than a 15% imbalance between the two cylinders. So let's hit the key here and see what happens. Well, we are just at the threshold of 90 psi, so I'm actually happy to see that. So that cylinder's pretty healthy. Let's switch everything over and check the other side. That's about spot on the other cylinder, so that's actually good news. So we're not low on compression, so that tells me that we probably don't have an issue with the valves. I think our issue is mostly going to be focused around that carburetor. But it's always good to check and make sure. Well, I said we go ahead and pull this carburetor off here. It's looking pretty dirty anyway. We know it was halfway running. I hate taking a carb off for no reason, but I'm almost certain that needle and seat's sticking or something because it's just running really rich. I mean, it just reeks like gas. I've never actually worked on one of these 482 Kohlers. First time ever getting my hands on one, and it is definitely a different animal. This thing does have a set of breaker points, but it also has an ignition coil. And this funky looking apparatus here is actually the governor. Looks like it runs off the flywheel. I don't know. It's kind of definitely unique compared to the Onins and the smaller Kohlers I've worked on. Oh, there we go. That looks very brittle, so I don't want to break that. This appears to be the hold down for the choke cable and the support bracket for the carburetor. Yeah, this is going to take a minute. Lovely design. Honestly, it'd probably be just as easy to take the intake manifold off with it. And there we go. Yeah, just your regular run-of-the-mill side draft carburetor. This one is definitely filthy. I don't think it's been apart in a very long time. Give this thing a quick cleaning on the outside. Everybody's favorite cleaner. All right, I cleaned the carb. Let's throw it back on the tractor. Ha, just kidding. Well, let's see what we got in the old bowl here. Nothing too terrible. There's some crunchies in there, but I've seen a lot worse. I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing apart. We'll do the old float test, put it in something, see if it sinks or not. And I'll bring you guys back if I find anything exciting. Well, there really wasn't anything too surprising. Like I said, we had a little bit of goop in the bowl. I'm going to get that cleaned out. Everything else looks pretty decent. Needle doesn't look terrible. It's not really wore out. However, I did find, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it, down in there where the needle rides, there was a real small speck of rust. And that could have been enough to hold that needle open to keep it from sealing off. So, unfortunately, the main jet, somebody has done their worst on this thing and rounded it off, so I really had no chance of getting it out. I did try, I just rounded it off even worse. So I'm going to go through and spray this thing with some brake clean, blow it out as good as I can. Really the only option we have there is whatever we try to do is going to destroy that jet. I don't have another one, so I want to avoid that. So hopefully we can clean it good enough without taking it out. If not, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. As far as the float goes, it is floating and it seems to be watertight. So that's also not an issue there. Well, it's all clean and back together. I'm gonna throw this back on the tractor and I will bring you guys back when we're ready to start this thing again. Now I got the carburetor put back on, ready to go. I went through and checked the gap on the spark plugs and found they were both a little tight. So I got those cleaned and adjusted. Before I put them plugs back in, I figured I better go and use some of this fancy equipment I got. I've got the borescope set up. We're going to look down in here and see what the valves look like. We got our two valves there. Definitely a little carboned up, but nothing terrible. Definitely has some oil sitting down there in the bottom. I wonder if we've got some wore out oil rings. Definitely needs a good cleaning though. You guys see all that carbon on there? It's actually sticking to the end of my camera here. But I didn't see anything alarming. Let's check the other side out. See, we got an exhaust valve open there. Yeah, I don't see anything alarming over here, guys. Just a greasy old engine. Well, I got that carburetor put back on. It's pretty much ready to go. As much as I would like to start it and let it warm up, loosen that oil up, it being over full like that, I'd rather just go ahead and drain it now and put the right amount in it. That way we know what we're working with. And something kind of funny on these tractors. Normally these Kohler 482s, they have got an oil filter on them. Well, Wheelhorse being Wheelhorse, I guess to save a few dollars, when they spec'd these engines from Kohler, they went for the cheaper option with no oil filter. So this thing literally is a twin cylinder with no oil filtration. Kind of an oddball thing for them, I thought. So anyway, we're going to pull this cap off and get some of this nasty oil out. According to the manual, it should have just shy of a gallon, right at 3 quarts. Oh man, you guys can see how runny that is. I mean, that's like water coming out. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, that's awful. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't try to start that thing any more than I did on that old oil. Guys, this is like a 7-quart drain pan, and you can see that that is way more than just 3 quarts of oil. I mean, this stuff is literally the consistency of water. So I'd say that my assumption was right. This thing was definitely dumping gas in the crankcase, and that would probably explain when I did get it started, when I took it off the trailer, why it was acting like it was burning oil. It was smoking real bad, and this is probably the reason why. I'm glad we got that out. Now we go ahead and put new stuff in. This thing actually calls for some SAE 30 right at 3 quarts, so we'll get this dumped in. Oh yeah, nice thick oil. Yeah, it is pretty hard on bearings and engine internals to run gasoline as engine oil. But I will say it's a really good cleaner, And so I bet the inside of that engine probably looks pretty good, with the exception of the top end with the carbon buildup. So if I plan on keeping this tractor, I'm probably going to want to run this oil for not very long and get it swapped out again until we get a lot of that gas-infested oil out of it. I'd say we were about spot on. And for those who might doubt me about the oil filter thing, this is on the passenger side of the engine. You see them two bolts right there? Those are holding on a block-off plate where an oil filter base would normally go. Yeah, kind of a fun fact about these things. No oil filter. Okay, we got the oil changed. Let's see if we can get this thing to start and run now. I don't have a new air filter, so I got to use the old one, guys. We're probably going to be seeing a lot of that until that excess engine oil mixed with gas burns off of it. I'm hoping that clears up. But it's idling nice and smooth. Think the headlights work? Nope. I want to see if this 3-point works. Oh, look at that. This is my first tractor with a 3-point, guys. That is awesome. I'm gonna check this belly lift now. Yep, it's working. Well, it was going great till it wasn't. Hell, I might have ran out of gas. I haven't even put gas in it since I brought it home. Yep, filter's bone dry. Well, guys, my plan now, I'm going to put some gas in it, start it back up. I'm going to let it run for a little bit, and hopefully them rings are going to come back around, and hopefully that gas didn't do too much damage. I mean, it sounds like it's running healthy, but it being over full like that, it's constantly sucking oil from the crankcase, and that's probably where a lot of that carbon has built up on the heads. I mean, you can see it's still just burning it all out of this exhaust over on this side of the engine. So I'm gonna put some gas in it, start it back up, move it outside, get some heat in it, and then hopefully we're gonna get the differential oil changed. Well, since the fuel lines are dry, I figured this is the best time as any to go ahead and change this fuel filter. I mean, obviously it was still working, it's just looking pretty rough. So we better play it safe and go ahead and throw a new one on here. These things are fantastic whenever you can actually use them. Look at that. No cussing and straining. I'll put the link for these in the description. They're like $10 or something on Amazon. Well, I got some heat in the tractor, ready to go ahead and try to change that rear end fluid. I'm pretty sure that's the same unit you're going to find in like the 416s and the 520s. You guys have seen me do it 10 times now, but there is one thing I do want to talk about. Now, obviously it does call for 10W30 engine oil, but where it comes to the filter, I've been screwing up here lately, and I want to talk about it for a second. So the Onan engines, they run a 51516. Funny enough, I actually bought one of these in preparation because I was told this was a D160, which has an Onan on it. Once I got it home, I figured out it wasn't. It's actually a Kohler. Anyway, so I just happen to have one of these filters. This is what I always run. Well, what I found out recently is that these filters are meant for engine oil, which no big deal. They thread on just fine. But these have a bypass valve in them. Now, that bypass valve is meant for if this filter ever clogs up on your engine, whether it be your car or your truck, your tractor, your mower, whatever, the filter ever clogs up, it's got a bypass valve built into it to allow oil to flow around it. That way it doesn't starve your engine. Well, I guess on hydraulic purposes, like these hydrostatic transmissions, you do not want that. I guess it restricts flow. This is actually what you need. This is a Wix 51410. It actually even says on it, it's a hydraulic filter. So all these years I've been doing it wrong. I wanted to share that with you guys. It's never too late to learn something. So anyway, I'm gonna get this fluid drained out and get the old filter off and get this new one put on. Now, funny enough, every time I change the fluid on one of these rear ends, I always struggle with trying to get you guys in here to see it. So just know that it's just not enough room down here. But you'll get the gist of it from up there. I believe the dry capacity on this unit here is 6 quarts. I've never been able to get that much squeezed back into one of these, but we'll go ahead and get this changed out and let that drain, and we'll get that filter popped off. That oil actually looks pretty good. I haven't really seen one of these hydrostatic units with dirty oil. They usually stay pretty clean. Sometimes these filters put up a pretty good fight. They seem to get overlooked on the old maintenance schedule. But I'm hoping we're going to get lucky. Oh, there we go. Changed several of these on tractors that have still got Wheel Horse branded filters on them. It always makes me giggle because you figure they got to be at least 10, 15 years old. Make sure you guys put the date, at least the date on the filter, if not the engine hours. That way the next guy that comes along to work on it isn't wondering the last time it was serviced. All right, new filter's on. Well, we're ready to put some oil back in this thing, and way down in there, that rubber hose sticking up, that's the only fill port for the rear end. The dipstick's part of the cap, so it's a very slow going process. If you guys have never done it, it takes a long time. It's real easy for them to get airlocked. So I'm not going to film the whole process because we'll be here all day. But yeah, we're going to go and get some oil put back in this. If you guys are doing this and you're having trouble getting it to take fluid, some guys say if you leave the oil filter on the side of the unit cracked, that way it can suck air in there. That kind of helps. Well, I think we got it where it needs to be. I'll probably start it and let it run for a little bit, and we'll check it later once it fills that filter back up. Well guys, the only other thing I really want to get done for now, I want to figure out why these lights ain't working. Don't know how well you guys will see it. But back inside the dash here, I can see the switch. And this bundle of wires right here is coming off that switch. Now this one wire runs all the way up to the headlights, so that connection's good. Then we have got a third wire to double back. I wonder if that's for the rear lights. Anyway, then we've got one red wire right here. It goes to this convenient little cap. Then I saw this, it's not even hooked up. So let's turn the switch on and see if the headlights work if I hold that wire on the battery. Oh. It's trying. Yeah, look at that. And the tail lights are working. Well, that's an easy enough fix. I'm going to put a new end on this. Not really sure why somebody would do this, considering the positive terminals right there, but I don't know. Sometimes it makes you wonder what goes through people's minds when they do something. But, oh well, this is going to be an easy enough repair for us. I'm not going to lie, guys, these battery cable connections kind of scare me. It looks like these are about one whack with a hammer away from snapping off completely. But luckily they double nutted this one, so we should be able just to feed our wire on up here. And attach it right there. Hey, look at that. I think this thing would be a great candidate to get some of them LED replacement lights, so might have to check into doing that in a future episode. Well, I went ahead and got the front end greased on it. I guess we're ready to take it for its maiden voyage. Now, unfortunately, the weather in Indiana is pretty crappy right now, so it's been raining off and on for about a week. The yard's very wet, so I don't know if I'll be able to do a whole lot of driving around, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, here we go. Well, I'd call that a successful test drive. I wanted to get one of these tractors in here to give you guys something to compare this thing to. Hopefully it'll kind of give you some perspective on how chunky these D-Series tractors actually are. What's funny is the seat height is almost identical, but it's the hood height, the height of the steering wheel, everything about these D-Series, they're just roomier. Now, I did slide the seat all the way back on this one, but it is extremely comfortable to sit on. It's still kind of clunky getting on and off of it, but to me, it's a lot more comfortable to ride on this D-Series than one of these 300 or 400 series. I'm sure you guys have noticed that there's something missing right about here. I also didn't say what I paid for that. So what happened was, a good friend of mine, he had mentioned that he had that D-Series. I reached out to him and asked him what he wanted for it. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. How about we trade up for that diesel engine? So to me, I know I had a lot of fun with that diesel engine. I mean, this tractor here is pretty much what started this channel, but I get bored pretty quick, and I was ready to move on to try something else. I'm trying to find me a nice V-twin to put on this thing. I haven't really decided what direction I want to go yet, but either way, the heart from this thing got us this sweet D-Series. Well, guys, I guess that's going to do it for this one. I know this wasn't as in-depth as a lot of my videos, but you know what? I'm okay with that. It's kind of nice to get an easy one every once in a while. So I got a few ideas on what I want to do with this tractor. As always, I kind of want your guys' feedback. So what would you guys like to see me do with it? I'm thinking fabricate up some kind of 3-point tow rig stinger apparatus. A lot of these dead mowers and tractors I bring home, they're kind of a pain in the butt to get in the garage by myself unless I tie off the steering wheel or I get off and straighten it. It'd be kind of nice to have something where I can rig it up and just pick the front axle up off the ground and drag it inside. I mean, this thing's got plenty of weight to support it, plenty of power, and that 3-point would just give me even more adjustability to it. I don't know if they make something like that. I'm gonna have to do some digging and see what I can come up with. As I mentioned, I do have my feelers out trying to find some attachments for this thing. Unfortunately, the attachments for like the 3, 4, and 500 series do not work on these. They are just for D series only. I gotta get an air filter for it. I've got one coming. It just didn't show up in time for me to finish this video. Yeah, I don't know what the plans are going to be with this thing for sure, but I will promise you one thing. This will not be the last time you see this tractor on the channel. And one more thing before I go. I know this is getting long-winded. I noticed there a couple weeks ago, YouTube actually notified me. I missed our 1-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been a year since I started doing this. I can't believe I've gotten as far as I have, and that's all thanks to you guys. So as always, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to watch my videos, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. So I will see you on the next one.